My name is Emmanuel Joseph, and here I'll be presenting my USPS strategic management analysis that we have been working on through the 8-week course. USPS is one of the oldest and most far-reaching institutions in the United States, which predates the Constitution, just to show you how old it is. Its modern corporate structure was created by the 1970 Reorganization Act, which was designed to operate with greater commercial independence than a traditional federal agency while still fulfilling a public need. The universal service obligation is central to understanding USPS's strategic constraints, as it must serve every address in the country, including rural and low-density areas that private carriers avoid because they're not profitable. The industry landscaping facing USPS is defined by two contradictory forces: an accelerating structural threat from digital substitution and Amazon's vertical integration into logistics, and an equally powerful structural opportunity in the continuing explosion of e-commerce parcel demand. These two forces make USPS's strategic window both urgent and real. Amazon's decision to internalize 72% of its own deliveries is the single most consequential competitive development of the past decade, and it removed what has been USPS's most reliable growing customer segment. Now, the IFE matrix scores USPS at 2.60, which is just above the 2.50 industry average benchmark, which means the organization has a functional internal platform, but it's not positioned to compete too aggressively on the basis of internal capability alone. The three factors rated for major strength are all concentrated in the shipping and packages segment: parcel revenue growth, network scale, and priority mail product revenue. The EFE score of 2.61 reveals that USPS is adequately but not optimally positioned to capture external opportunities. The rating of 4 on e-commerce response reflects the genuine progress USPS has made in bulking, shipping, and packages revenue, particularly through ground advantage. The space matrix confirms that competitive quadrant placement, meaning USPS operates in an industry with attractive growth characteristics, but is constrained by a weak financial position and moderately hostile stability environment. The competitive quadrants prescribe strategies align precisely with QSPM winner. The grand strategy adds a crucial nuance, though. The corporate level position near quadrant 3 should not drive strategy for every division. Shipping packages belongs firmly in quadrant 1, which aggressive growth is appropriate. The BCG matrix delivers the clearest portfolio prescription available for the analytical frameworks. USPS must shift capital from its declining cash cows, which would be first-class mail and marketing mail, to its single growth asset, which is shipping and packages, which is currently positioned as a question mark due to the low relative market share despite significant absolute revenue. The relative market share figure for shipping and packages appears low because the total addressable private parcel market, dominated by FedEx, UPS, and Amazon, is vastly larger than USPS's current share. As we touched on earlier, it confirms the competitive quadrant placement, meaning that USPS operates in an industry that has attractive growth characteristics like e-commerce and high-entry bars, whereas the grand strategy matrix adds something different. It gives the corporate level position near quadrant 3 should not drive strategy forever. Now, the EPS/EBIT analysis shows us a different result relative to standard corporate finance because USPS does not pay corporate income tax. Debt financing provides no interest tax shield and is strictly worse
than equity financing across all EBIT scenarios. This means that the usual leverage capital structure prescription does not apply here, and USPS should pursue congressional appropriations or favorable Treasury borrowing structure to minimize direct interest drag on. As far as the marketing plan, USPS is materially underinvested in marketing relative to its commercial competitors. It has a very low percent of revenue it spends, less than half the proportional rate. A carrier operating in a more premium market segment would have a higher rate that it spends on marketing, and the recommended budget is 15% increase to 179 million is modest in absolute terms, but the strategic allocation of that increment is what makes it more impactful. The negotiation valuation of USPS is the single most understood finding in this analysis, and it's important to show that clearly what means and what it doesn't mean. It does not mean USPS is involved in the government sense or that it should be shut down or privatized. USPS cannot fail in the way a private company can, as it has statutory mandate, congressional appropriation authority, and essential public function status. The QSPM is the analytical accumulation of this entire study, and the result is very flexible. We see strategy 1 outperform strategy 2 by 1.16 TSA points, and it's a margin that shows more than marginal preference. It shows a analytical judgment that the revenue growth is the correct lever, and cost cutting is the incomplete substitute. The leadership at USPS challenge is not exactly operational. The organization has successfully delivered to 167 million addresses for decades. The challenge is more about culture and commercial workforce and management structure built around regulatory compliance and operational consistency needs to learn to behave more like a market responsive commercial enterprise without abandoning the service reliability that defines the brand. Overall, in conclusion, USPS faces a strategic window that is very time limited, but Amazon's continued logistical self-sufficiency means that each passing year shortens the market availability to USPS in the parcel segment. So the analytical frameworks deployed across this study cover on the same answer with